Welcome to This Week in Career Tech. I'm David Young. This week, we have a new report that finds that federal career tech funding is losing its ground to inflation, while at the same time, K-12 enrollment has continued to increase. We're going to look at Alabama. They've opened a $150 million regional CTE grant for facilities. We're going to review student outcome data from North Carolina and federally funded schools serving Native students. We're also going to close it up with two Georgia students who earned a state drone title and passed their FAA Part 107 exam and got their remote pilot certificate. All right, so let's dive in. The Center for American Progress released a report on CTE policy and employment outcomes. It found that K-12 career tech enrollment increased 10% from the 22-23 school year to the 23-24 school year. But at the same time, federal funding under Perkins 5 has not kept pace with inflation. So that report estimates that there is a $230 million difference between the amount appropriated in 2024 and the amount needed to maintain its buying power today. The report also identified problems with staffing, curriculum, and data. It says that at least 17 states don't have systems that can connect student information from high school all the way through college and employment. So as a result, a lot of schools can't see whether CTE students continue their education or find work in related field. Now, if we're career tech leaders, the funding trend affects your purchasing power and your long-term planning, right? The enrollment is rising, but federal dollars don't really cover as much as they once did. And that's a huge bummer because it looks like you're keeping a level budget on paper, but at the same time, it gets you less and less for things like supplies, services, curriculum. And that's a helpful thing to bring up whenever you're questioned about this from district leaders or school boards. For our next story, Alabama has announced a $150 million grant for their regional career and technical education centers. This funding comes from the Education Trust Fund Advancement and Technology Fund. Schools can use it for capital projects and for equipment. So if you're going to do this, proposals have to include a partnership. So at least two local education agencies can apply together, or an LEA may partner with a community college in the Alabama Community College system. It requires a local match, and it uses a sliding scale based on each participating LEA's financial capacity. So the match cannot exceed 50% of the total project costs, and each project can get up to $20 million. So applications are due pretty soon. They're due July 31st, 2026 at midnight. So Alabama districts that are considering a regional facility or a major equipment purchase want to get in on this. You have a short period to confirm your partners and complete the proposal. Our next story brings us to the state of Texas. So Texas 2036 released a report on the state's education to workforce reforms. So since 2018, the number of post-secondary credentials earned in high school has increased 532%. Dual credit course taking has increased 35%. In 2024, Texas community colleges awarded 140,000 credentials of value, as they call them. This report also examined the blended pathways. So these pathways combine college credit with career preparation, such as an industry certificate. Rural students who completed a blended pathway, they found, earned $17,170 more 6 years after graduation. This report also identified a limit in the state's current system. So it says that Texas still lacks enough workforce data to determine really how well these credentials match the employer needs of different regions. Completion data can show whether students finish a pathway. Then the labor market is still needed to show whether that pathway actually leads to useful opportunities in the local economy. For school leaders, both of those measures are really important. So one tracks student progress, the other helps track whether a credential actually leads to some type of regional demand. Our next story brings us up to North Carolina. So Brunswick County Schools in North Carolina reported several CTE outcome gains. So more than 95% of the district's CTE concentrators of the class of 2025 graduated on time. The district's overall graduation rate for that class was 87.6%. Their credential attainment also increased. So the rate rose from 45.2% in the 22-23 school year to a preliminary 86.2% in the most recent year that was reported. Then they looked at completed internships. They increased from 8 a few years ago to 61 this year. The district's goal next year is about 75. Also to note, about 42% of graduating seniors took part in some type of dual enrollment. Now, the district has made credential completion a clear expectation for students in career tech courses. So its results show how graduation, credentials, internships, and dual enrollment can be tracked together rather than treated as separate efforts. So that broader scorecard gives leaders a nice, clear view of participation, completion, and work-based learning across the program. Now we turn to some Native American students. An Associated Press report examined graduation trends at federally funded schools serving Native American students. So across the Bureau of Indian Education System, the four-year graduation rate reached 79% by 2025. It was just over 50% in 2015. So that's a huge jump in that 10-year period. Well, the officials noted that part of that increase came from some corrections to earlier data collection methods, but the article also described changes at a few schools in Washington. This school introduced a career and technical education curriculum in 2020, so the programs included things like health sciences and fisheries management. Administrators said that these options help some students find a stronger reason to remain in school. Now, that school's graduation rate went from 53% in 2019 to 87% in 2025. The system-wide and school-level figures have different causes, so they shouldn't be treated as proof that one program produced every gain, but still, that school's example shows exactly how career-connected courses can be a broader part of student engagement and strategies for graduation. It also shows why local program details should be considered alongside system-wide graduation statistics. All right, our last story brings us down to the great state of Georgia. Students from Fulton Schools College and Career Academy placed first at the 2026 Georgia High School Aviation Challenge. There were two 12th grade students who entered the unmanned aviation pathway this school year without any prior drone experience. They also became the first two students in their class to qualify for and take the FAA's Unmanned Aircraft General Exam, which allows you to earn your remote pilot certificate and operate drones commercially. This program uses peer mentoring as part of its instruction. Second-year students returned as work-based learning students and helped newer students develop their flight skills. So this example shows one way to structure a high school drone pathway. Students can receive instruction, they practice with peers, they prepare for an industry credential, and then they apply those skills in a competition. So those are this week's update. If you want to check out any of these stories in more detail, I've linked all the sources below. Also, if you want to get a bite-sized version of these news updates every week in your inbox, just subscribe to my This Week in Career Tech newsletter down below. Thanks again. I'm David Young. See you next week.